the laid back vibe, baby.
Welcome to the Cup of Joe Show, where we explore the journey of recovery from alcohol and drug addiction. One story, one conversation, and one step at a time. I'm your host, Joe, creating a safe space for honest discussions about the challenges and triumphs of addiction and alcoholism. In each episode, we'll hear inspiring stories and uncover tools that make healing possible. Sobriety is not a one-size-fits-all journey, and you don't have to face it alone. Recovery is possible, and it's worth it. Thank you for joining the Cup of Joe Show. Now let's get started. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Cup of Joe Show. I'm your host, of course, Joe, and I'm very excited to have my guest today, my good friend here, Jeremy S. Jeremy got sober December 18th, 2024, after first being introduced to AA back in 2010, following a 28-day inpatient stay in rehab. Born in Riverside, California, Jeremy now lives in East Tennessee, where his journey of recovery, fatherhood, and self-discovery continues to unfold. Jeremy is a proud dad to Penelope, 12, and Wyatt, 10, two bright, active, and academically driven kids who bring meaning to every part of his life. Though his journey includes loss and family struggles, Jeremy's path to recovery has been about growth, healing, and showing up for the life he has today. Off the clock, Jeremy loves golfing, snowboarding, watching movies, and pretty much all things sports. But more than anything, he finds joy in being a present and supportive dad. Jeremy's story is a powerful reminder of the healing and hope found in recovery. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and let's get into it. How you doing today, Jeremy?
I'm doing great, Joe. Thanks for having me, buddy.
Yeah. You are willing to be here with me, man. It means a lot.
I'm
So
surprised
tell me,
too.
what was it like? You. It's a good thing. It really is.
I want to tell them you're paying me.
I wish I could, buddy. I wish I could. But I think you've paid enough throughout your life to
no
get
kidding.
here. So
no kidding.
So what was it like growing up, Jeremy?
Oh God. Well, growing up in Compton. No, I'm kidding. I was I was born, like you said, in California, but I moved here to Tennessee at an early age. Lived in East Tennessee most of my early life. My father was a doctor. My mother was in marketing. I was the youngest of four, so you might say I was spoiled rotten. I was the baby of the family. I had three older sisters that liked to put makeup on me and terrorize me. That I never thought of it. That might have something to do with all this, but yeah. So I mean, from the outside in, I grew up in a nice neighborhood. I had dozens of friends. I was athletic. I played lots of sports. Did well in school, tested high. But I guess I could say keeping that, maintaining that became my lifelong issue. There was a lot of expectations at an early age, from my parents, the school, and coaches, and everybody alike. And, by the time I was about 12 years old, I'd say my behavior started to change. The way that I thought and my attitude started to shift. I felt less content. I just, everything felt kind of boring. School didn't seem important. I don't know if I was rebelling against my parents or teachers, but I didn't want all this positive attention, Joe. I didn't want it. So I started behaving different, thrill seeking, even just things like being the class clown. I started terrorizing the neighborhood with my pellet gun, stealing cigarettes and Playboys and, running around like we do. But I stayed popular amongst everybody. I continued to play soccer, baseball, track, golf. I mean, you name it, I played it. I was, big into art. I love to draw. Um, Actually, almost went on to art school, but mom and dad said I could pay for that myself. And I said, you know what, I'll try college. And then I met a girl, but anyways, by like 13, I'd say I was, really, really changing. Really, my grades started suffering. My friends had completely started to change. I started sneaking out at night, vandalizing the cheerleaders' homes, smoking the reefer, you know, drinking alcohol. I that's about the time that I discovered the holy grail, if you will, like the old liquor cabinet. Mom and dad didn't drink much, but we had like a stacked liquor cabinet for absolutely no reason. Um, and that just kind of became my playground. I mean, Joe, like they say, from the first minute, I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. I wanted everybody to know how awesome it was. If the people I invited over, I offered it. If they didn't like it, I probably didn't invite them over again. I had one or two other friends that liked it almost as much as me. And that just kind of took off. I mean, that was a big change in every part of my life. Discovering that liquor cabinet. I mean, I started taking this stuff and mixing it in my milkshakes. I was hiding this stuff already. I'm 13 years old, and well, I'll just take a little bit more. Well, I'll just take a little bit more until I'm filling the whole bottles up with water or Coca-Cola and water, these things that we do. But it was pretty bad. I wasn't doing well in school. I mean, like we do, my parents didn't know what to do. My teachers didn't know what to do. They always just labeled it depression. He's got depression, you know? And they tried giving me medications, but I'd never take them. I didn't even know what depression was. I just wasn't happy. But when I drank, I was extremely happy. But either way, by like ninth grade, I was drinking regularly, like every chance I got. I was smoking weed just the same. By then I had been experimenting with shrooms and LSD and prescription meds, anything that made me change, the way I felt. I got popular again, but for all the wrong reasons. And I kind of liked it. I was like, I got off on being rebellious or, being that guy, that dangerous guy. And of course, like sports and school had far become like something in the past. It just was not important. Now enter girls and I was very promiscuous, if you will. I got around Joe, and I wasn't real careful about it, and I got beat up a lot for it. Um, but by 17, I was a mess, dude. I was skipping school. I mean, my parents had all but given up. I was seeing the shrink, but when I was seeing the shrink, I mean, 99% of the times I'm drunk or high. But I enjoyed these conversations, and he didn't judge, and he didn't rat me out per se. He would just sit and ask me questions like, why are you doing this? You're brilliant, you're a smart young man, why are you throwing everything away? And you know by then I had
Do
been.
you ever think about? Yeah, I was
Go
just
ahead.
gonna say, do you ever think about? Do you ever think about why were you throwing everything away? Do you ever think about that?
you know there's a lot of different things that I think about. Like my mom, for instance, used to cry and scream and say you got it from her dad, from my grandfather, because he was an abusive. I wasn't abusive, but he was. I mean, knocked their teeth out, kind of abusive, and buy him a Corvette to say I'm sorry. And she came from a family of a lot of suicides, murders, alcohol, drugs, and she didn't touch any of it but a glass of wine occasionally. And she had come out, on the other side of things, whereas, the rest of her family hadn't. And I think this really worried her. And maybe it was an inherent thing. But, I didn't know what that meant then. I didn't know what an alcoholic was. And I think now, looking back, I know that depression is a real thing. It's a real thing. I just didn't want to admit that, that was a thing that I suffered from, because there was nothing wrong with me. Like we say, it's everybody else. There's nothing wrong with me. I mean, I walked around for years, Joe, telling everybody what they should be doing. You know, that's really what my thing was why aren't you doing it this way? Well, you need to be doing it this way. Well, that's stupid. And in more words than not, I'd say that, you're fucking stupid. That's just who I was. But I mean, as much of these drugs and alcohol and other things that I kept putting into my body and surrounding it with the girls and the older friends that could get me booze anytime I wanted it, and I could go hang out at their apartments. And, I'm still in like 10th grade at this time. But, by the time I'm seeing a shrink, I'd been arrested, I don't know how many times, picked up for underage consumption or drunken in public or buying people beer underage. I always had a fake ID. Back then, you just kind of photocopied your license, changed a few numbers, and printed it out and put it in your wallet, and you were good to go. But anyways, yeah, I guess in senior year of high school, I got into some serious trouble. One Tuesday night, I decided to funnel a bunch of beer, drive to Gatlinburg, and have a good old time. And on the way back, I got pulled over. I got a DUI. They found a real fake ID and charged me with fraud. Not just off the rip. It was a lot later, after my mouth kept running for about an hour. I was doing one of those, do you know who I am kind of thing. And back to this, you're so fucking stupid. Like, my house is just 2 miles that way. You wasted your time. I want to talk to your boss kind of thing. Give me your badge number. So they decided to teach me a lesson. The friend that was with me, his parents got to come and pick him up, but I went off to jail, and this was real. I had to get an attorney. I had to go to jail. I had to lose my license for a year. My parents said, enough's enough. You are on house arrest, basically. I couldn't get anywhere, and I'll be honest, I started dating a girl, like one girl. This was the first for me. I started dating a girl, a pretty young, church-going girl that really cared for me a lot. I don't know, she, got me where I needed to go, kept me out of trouble. I mean, we still drank like high schoolers do, and me more when I was drinking, but it was more so on the weekends. I didn't have the ability to just go pick up some beer and drive around drinking. And that's what I had done for years. It's just fill my gas tank up, drive around, stop at different houses, re-up, and go to the next. It was really pretty sick by then. But anyways, that really calmed me down. I was stuck at school. I figured I might as well do my schoolwork. So somehow I ended up graduating well enough to get into college. And, I still wasn't behaving. Like, the night I graduated high school, I was tripping on acid and giggling like a schoolgirl. You know what I mean? I wasn't right, but I was doing enough to get by. But anyways, off to college I went. And there's where I, became like the alcoholic amongst alcoholics, Joe. I mean, everybody that I found was an alcoholic, and everybody that was my friend was kicked out of school after the first year. Somehow, and I think it was just my fear of being looked down at, or of people knowing what I'm really doing, or my parents being disappointed, is the only thing that kept me going. I mean, that and, Adderall. And I mean, I would leave the bar and take what I needed to wake up and write a paper. That's how I did college. Everything was done around my drinking, you know? And there was a lot of nights where I lost control. And I mean, I wrecked a lot of cars. I got 3 more DUIs. And I managed to get out of all this stuff. I managed to get out of trouble all the time. I don't know how I did this, or for a while, I managed to stay out of trouble. And, I remember one night in college, somebody decided they wanted me to drive their Navigator home, and I found a nice little parking space and decided to back in. And I not only trashed his car, but I hit 2 more in the making. You know, people ran up and said, "You hit my car," and I looked at him and said, "You know what? No, I didn't. You're crazy." Got in the car and peeled off. These are things that just became a normal, like you wake up the next day and go, oh my gosh, and then laugh about it. These things were happening. I was a mess. But like I said, I graduated. I graduated with honors somehow. I mean, I looking back, I wasn't honorable, if you will, but I probably cheated. Back then, I probably plagiarized a lot of things, but I got away with it, just like a lot of other things during that time. And that's the only reason that I graduated was I got away with it. I even took a job with the state. You know, I passed a drug screen I shouldn't have passed because I was in snowshoes snowboarding in more ways than one all weekend, the weekend before. And, I did, but my reputation had preceded me at the courthouse. I would be out at bars, nice fancy bars now because I had this big job and I was important. And they would see me just falling down drunk and they would bring it up at work at the courthouse. People are talking, you can't be doing this, you're, and I was. So I eventually didn't make it to work and lost my job. I blamed it on them and decided I was going to go back to school. Fuck them. I'm going back to school. So I left all of my furniture to a friend. I left the home I had rented it out to friends, and I took off to Washington, D.C. Was going to go live in the big city and become a big time lawyer. So I did. I went up there. Well, I didn't become big time, that's for sure. But I did go on to law school. And man, I I was hanging on by a thread. I mean, honestly, my alcoholism was so bad and so evident. I was going into class drunk at 8 a.m. The teachers started noticing. Everybody knew. They would find me in the bar. I spent a lot more time in the bar than I ever did in the library. Um, I convinced my doctor that I was having all these problems. I was taking uppers now to study. I was taking downers for test anxiety. I was, taking sleeping pills to sleep at night. And all the while I'm drinking, you know, liquor. Uh, I don't know. I'm in my third semester, and one of my crim law professors takes me into his office and says, "Man, are you sure you really want to be here?" And I looked at him and I said, "You know what? No, I'm not sure. I don't really like it here." But lucky for this alcoholic, I had been dating a very, very wealthy girl, trust funded, very intelligent girl. And I convinced her that, like we do, or very convincing, I convinced her that we needed to move to the beach, that we were in our 20s, we needed to have some fun before we grew up. And this was the last chance. And she said, "You know what, Jeremy? You're right. We should go have some fun." We packed up both of our apartments and moved to the beach, got a condo, and there we were. I was in like an alcoholic's paradise. I was listening to Jimmy Buffett sitting on the beach drunk day after day after day with you know, a mean sunburn. But after about a year of this, it just, I wasn't working. I couldn't hold a job. she was working and going, and during the day I would be drinking all day. I would hide it in the dumpster, like we do. I'd open a bottle of wine, pour us both a drink, and I would start on mine as though that was my first of the day, you know? Pretty bad. I was by this time I'm hiding bottles of vodka and everywhere, the suit in the closet, under, the vanity and the washroom, in the golf clubs, in the trunk, just anywhere. I'm taking the trash out, I'm stopping for a snort. But after about a year, man, I got sick. Like I couldn't write. I would shake so bad. Like I couldn't get out of bed without a drink. Like it got so bad. Like if I walked outside, I wouldn't go to the beach because I would just sweat profusely. You know, it was a point where I was almost just all I could do was sit on the couch and drink. And that wasn't before I had a drink to get out of bed to move to the couch. It was bad. So I went from like this year where we were just in paradise. I mean, we were at the Montage and in Laguna Beach at Christmas, sitting next to like Adam Sandler. I mean, this girl was wealthy. I was drunk at a wedding one time and told Robert Kraft that his team sucked balls. These things happen. Not to mention, I got up on stage at this wedding, took somebody's guitar and started playing it while they were taking a break. Yeah, her parents loved me. But you know what? I forgot to mention a really important part, and that was when I was in college, my mom got diagnosed with cancer. They said, you got 6 months to live. And this really did escalate my drinking at the time, but she didn't die. She kept doing these trial programs and she kept living. So here we are. This is like 7, 8 years later. She's still alive. And, at this point, she's getting sicker. My father, he wasn't in the picture. He had started sleeping with his office manager, and got caught in some hotels and some funny business. And our relationship was no longer. But I went through a lot of family shit with this. Now I've got 3 sisters. 2 of them are on dad's side, and one of them's on mom's side. I'm caught in the middle as the baby, and it just got really ugly. But anyways, so I'm still at the beach, and I get a call that she needs a bone marrow transplant, and there's nobody to take her. She has to be there for a month in a hospital in Emory University. So I flew back. I mean, I am sick. I'm angry. I'm angry with God. I'm angry with my girlfriend. I'm angry with my mom for getting sick, and I'm really angry at my dad for, it's his fault that I'm having to do this. He should be there. And I wouldn't take it back for the world, but I never made it back to the beach. I loaded that plane. We went to Emory for a month. I stayed drinking, but I stayed by her side. And we came back home. It didn't take. So I literally spent the next 7 or 8 months watching her fall apart in front of me as her caretaker. And, by now I'm taking, prescribed Xanax more so than I should and downing it with a bottle of vodka. It's just, I'm in a bad, bad place, Joe. And, that year I lost my home, my girlfriend, I lost my mother that year. I was now back in Tennessee, Knoxville, Tennessee, with no home, never finished my education, no body. My sisters swooped in and took all they wanted from the house, and they were gone. And I was left, with an empty house, with all these things to do, and my tail between my legs. So, that year I went to rehab for the first time. I started seeing that shrink from high school, or I saw him a few times. I didn't know what else to do. So I called him up and I saw him, and he said, you really need to go to rehab. You're sick. You can't just come off of this. You need to go. I didn't know what rehab was, but I said, okay, that sounds good. So I left and went and got a bunch of liquor. If I was going to go to rehab. I was going to go right. And got drunk and went to rehab. And, I was introduced to the program, but, after I started to sober up and stop shaking and all of those things that you hear from people like me that continuously do this, go to rehab, come out, think we're cured or think we can do something different and have different results. I thought, well, it must have been the prescription medication. It's not the drinking. And it's probably the circumstance, mom dying and all of these things. Who wouldn't drink, So it was a short matter of time before I'm drunk again, putting a Porsche into the ditch and running away, leaving it there totaled. These are things that I did because I wanted to go to Hooters at 11 a.m. after I drank a bottle of liquor. I mean, who does these things? And I had enough money from her death to kind of keep appearances up, per se, if I left the house. But I had friends that started to see he needs help, and they thought the help I needed was getting out of the house. So they would drag me out to the bars, let's get him out, show him a good time. Before I knew it, I had gotten a girl pregnant. I had proposed drunk. I went and bought a big diamond and proposed to this girl I hardly knew. And she loved it, she didn't see through it or didn't want to see it. She hadn't really seen the worst of it yet. I mean, she'd catch me taking snorts out of my travel bag and things at times. And, I play it off as, funny. But it's, I don't know what the deal was, but for some reason she married me. I don't remember the wedding, but I do have a video recording. Sweating profusely on the beach, after I've been at the golf course drinking all day. Anyway, so what happened next was we had a baby. I got us a nice place with the money that I had inherited, just renting. And, I wasn't thinking about how long that money might last, which didn't go far. But, we started doing what people would do that are having a baby. We had a baby, and, that was my daughter, Penelope. And I thought, I cried. I thought she was the most beautiful thing in the world. I was so happy. It made me forget everything else for a minute. But honestly, I mean, I remember the day after they took Penelope for a nap and, my ex-wife took a nap, then wife, I went down to the strip from the hospital and had a few drinks. I mean, this is what I did, and if I couldn't do it for her, and I thought coming into this, if I could do it for anything, marriage didn't work. That didn't do it. Still wasn't happy. A nice place didn't work. Wasn't happy. The baby, surely. No. I mean, as sick as it is, I can remember changing her diapers and my hands shaking so badly that I could hardly put on a new one. I mean, these are the times where I said, you're really a piece of shit, man. Like, you got this beautiful little girl in front of you and you're, this is what you're doing. And, things got pretty bad around the house. Now you got a crying baby. She was colicky. We didn't sleep for a year. I'm escalating. I'm becoming almost manic. Uncontrollable. Just going in and out of jobs and blaming it on the job. When I just quit showing up. I never got fired. I just quit showing up. And it always put us in a bad situation financially. We got another kid on the way, and things got pretty rough. But Wyatt was born. At this point, she's going to stay home. I've got to work. I'm capable of making more money. So now I'm working a real job, and I'm working a lot of hours, and I'm tired. And now we have two babies, and I'm coming home from work, and I'm getting handed two babies, and there's a messy house, and I'm OCD, and I can't stand it. And, it was only a matter of time before I just blew my shit, Joe. And I did. I got on my knees, and I asked her for help. I said, what can I do? Can you go back to work? I can't keep working like this. I'm falling apart. And, and she said, hey, dude, it's time for you to man up. Like, that's what you do. You're a man, you're a father. We need money. And some reason, that was it. That was the straw that broke my back. We got into a fight one day and I just walked out of the front door, went to a hotel, left these two kids, these beautiful kids, and went to a hotel and didn't look back and just started drinking. And still blaming God if there is such a thing. And if there was, he wouldn't be doing this to me, right? And my father, he's so insatiable, he'll never be happy. My ex-wife, I gave her everything and all she does is complain. All of these things. I drank on those for months. And then showed back up, and wouldn't you know it, the locks were changed. And this led me on to a lot of going in and out of hotels, a lot of going in and out of occasional jobs, running up credit cards, getting an apartment, losing an apartment, moving in with a friend, getting kicked out of that house. Just I'm in and out of the kids' lives. I'm getting sober every once in a while, but I can't maintain. And I'm not working any program. I'm not utilizing anything that I learned in rehab. Now I'm going back to rehabs because I have nowhere else to go. I'm waking up in the ER sick and I have nowhere to go. So I'm going to rehab. Then I'm getting out and I'm going to a halfway house. And then I'm getting better. And, I worked the first step. I definitely got a problem because I'm living in a halfway house. And then I jumped straight to 9. I'm so sorry, everybody. I was just going through a lot. Can you ever forgive me? And by the time I'm apologizing, I'm right back in the middle of it. This went on to at one point I was in a condo up on a hill alone for 6 months. The only place I went was the liquor store and back. I mean, my best friend was like the Jimmy John's delivery driver. It was just sick. And I don't know. This continued, and to the point where last year I checked into a hotel with no intention of checking out. I took every bit of money I had, an empty car more or less, left it parked in the parking lot, went up with one goal, and that was to drink myself to death. And I almost succeeded. I was in there. They came looking because I hadn't paid bills or something, and I got carried out of that room. They said it was just disgusting. And all I remember is I was so sick I couldn't get out of bed and I couldn't go get more liquor. And I ended up having a minor heart attack and several seizures. And, at this point, I didn't know what to do. I was scared. I was scared. I didn't know. I got so close to dying and I didn't die. And now I don't know if I want to die, just confused. And I said, I can't, rehab's not doing it. I need help because I really think I'm going to end up following through with this if I don't get some professional help. And so I got put into, a facility, a mental health facility with a lot of other people that were suffering a lot of depression and, a lot of things that they couldn't control. But I was on suicide watch for weeks. I would write in this journal just this evil, suicidal stuff day after day after day. And, they kept me there. They kept me there until I was ready to go, until they thought I could leave without trying to hurt myself. And I thought I was. I went to a halfway house. I talked good. I met all the guys. I wasn't drinking. I found a job and got a paycheck. And then I bought a bottle. And I blacked out. Woke up in a hospital. I don't know what happened. I mean, I remember buying a pint on a Friday with my first paycheck. And this time it was just instant blackout. I later found out that I had been held up in my room for about 3 days and that they had found me with 8 or 9 bottles next to my bed. So I was getting out and driving to the store, sneaking out and back and forth, but I didn't know it. And that's some scary shit. I mean, I blacked out a lot, but this was just, one drink, I was gone. I don't remember what happened. And so I wake up in this hospital and I'm like, dude, I was scared. Like, this is the first time it hit me that I literally had no money. I had no body left. I had nothing. I had nothing but whatever they had in a bag and the scrubs I was wearing. And I said, oh shit, where am I going to go? And what am I going to do? And I started crying. And for some reason, and I could tell you why, because I had done this before, but I just started praying, you know? I just started praying. I had done this awful thing. I about left my kids fatherless because I convinced myself while drinking that they were better off without me. And I really thought it. They're going to be better off without me, 100%. And just started praying. And I said, God, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I'm going to be out on the street and I have no direction. I don't know what to do. And eventually time came where they were like, can we call somebody? Do you need to call somebody? What do you do? I'm going, well, my ex-wife, my dad, no, my sisters, no, 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 no. What about my sponsor? There was some time there where I had been working with a sponsor and, would get 4 or 5 months and I was going to meetings regularly. I'm not going to backtrack and explain all this, but there were months where thought I was really trying. I would stay sober for a few months. I would go to meetings, but I kept going back to this sponsor. And for some reason, he kept putting up with my bullshit. And that day I called him and I had talked to him in months. And I'm like, dude, what are you doing? I said, what are you doing? I said, man, I'm in trouble. You mind picking me up? And he said, yeah, I guess I can pick you up. And with no idea of what I was going to say, where I was going to do, go, how I was going to do it. I just picked up the phone and called and he showed up. And, we're talking about a guy that I had seen in and out. I was in and out of AA and had seen this person several times. And they seemed so spiritual. And that was like the one thing I could never grasp was spirituality. I didn't know what it meant. I didn't know what it felt like. The best I could do was hold on to AA, with like a Kung Fu grip and believe in that enough to stay sober just long enough, to see some kind of light at the end of the tunnel. But, I could never follow through because I never had this moment that they kept talking about where, I could see clear and things changed and, oh gosh, it just never happened for me. And, I never thought it would. But anyways, this poor fella came and picked me up and was uber nice. Nobody was nice to me at that point. And I felt like I had let this guy down so many times and I had lied to him over and over, even though I didn't think I was lying to him. I really wanted to get sober. I just didn't know how. And, so at this point, I'm hopeless. I'm just begging for mercy. And, he showed me some unconditional love that day, but not before like totally screamed my head off, calling me every name under the sun, just that coming to Jesus moment. If you don't do every freaking thing I say from now on, I am fucking done with you, man. But it was like that moment where it was like, dude, this is serious. Like, if you don't do this, it is over, you know? And it's like at that moment, yeah, that changed everything for me, that moment. And, you know, I don't know. It's like over the last 6 months, I've just, I used to get so angry at all of these shrinks and all of these people that I would see in and out of rehabs. And, they would say all these things and they never made any sense. And it always sounded so cliche and bullshit. And I used to say, they used to always say content. Like, you don't have to be happy. You just need to be content. And of course, I would throw a fit and say, well, I'm not doing all this shit just to be content. I'm going to be happy by God, or I'm not doing this shit. But now I know what that means, man. Like, it's okay just to be okay. There I go, saying those stupid, but it is, I'm okay today, I don't need for anything. And that's good because I don't have a lot. But, I'm happy today. And, it's a kind of happiness that I can actually maintain. It's not that happiness that, it comes and goes in a manic fashion. It's it's here. I have good days, I have bad days, but now I know what to do with those bad days. I recently was in a meeting telling everybody how great life was going, and that Friday I lost my job. I got fired. And 99% of the time I would have left that going F them, and I would have picked up a bottle and I would have drank till I found myself in a hotel or an ICU or something. But I didn't. I went straight to my sponsor. I said, look, man, this is messed up. This isn't supposed to happen. I'm doing everything I'm supposed to be doing, right? And, but I didn't get drunk. And, I took a few days, and of course I was, scared and sad and mad and all these things. But Monday came, and, I went back to finding a job, went back to my meetings, went back to my regular life without that job. And, 2 weeks later, I find myself in a better job, in a better situation, having gone through that stuff and survived it. And it's just, it's just because of this program that I could do that I can, I mean, if I was going to get drunk, buddy, that was what I did. I lost a job and I got drunk for a while, and, I didn't. And now, like you said, I've been sober since last December 18th, which is not a real long time, but it's been long enough for me to work some steps. And I have regular meetings. I've gotten to know a lot of great people, not including yourself. I'm just kidding. But but I have, man. I have, just like you, Joe, and a lot of other people like you, man, that have just given me motivation to continue on, motivation, and such a good good mentors, if not just guys I look up to. I say, these are some good guys. These are better friends than I've ever had in my life. These are people that call me when I don't show up somewhere. And I'm going to continue doing this. And I mean, my kids, it's been long enough that I'm seeing my kids regularly. I talk to my 12-year-old daughter every day on the phone. Somehow, some way, they're great kids. They don't misbehave. They do well in school. They're active. And it's just, I mean, just the sight of them, it used to feel like work, man. Going to the park was work. We're only going to have so much time before I get sick and I need to make an excuse to go home so I can have another drink. Like, let's go home and just watch a movie, guys. Stuff like that. And now it's priceless, man. I spend every moment just looking around going, how could I have, nope. I'm not going to look back. I've got this right now and it's awesome and I want to keep it, So that's probably a lot more than you wanted. But I even get along with my ex-wife now. We sit next to each other in ball games and have like adult conversations. I don't think we ever had an adult conversation, in the 7 or 8 years that we were still married, and it's pretty cool today. But like I said, I'm not. I'm content, Joe. I'm content to be content, and I'm good. And I'm very grateful and hopeful today.
Good.
That's real.
Well,
I mean that really.
That is real.
I'm not blowing smoke.
I think
man.
that's pretty. And I love that you've got by the time this episode comes out, less than a year of sobriety, and you're doing the deal, and you're already starting to see some of the results. I remember old guy Tom Wells. When you talked about losing your job and you didn't go drink, he used to say. Now I'll show my age a little bit, but he'd say, write it down on an index card. He said, write that down. He said, because that's a miracle, and when things get tough, you can pull that out and say, man, I lost my job and I didn't have to drink over it or whatever. I just think it's amazing. So now I ask you a question. Sorry, Jeremy, you just really made me think of that. And so what's a typical day now look like for you? Like, what do you do? Like, what's your routine like?
Routine today. I mean, I've got like a schedule now, man. I've got like my meetings that I go to on certain nights. I expect to be in certain places. I have my nights where I see the kids, but my days, all start off the same. I wake up, I'm not sick. I'm excited to go to work. That's weird. I read, I pray, and I take a shower and I go off on my day. And, in between work and meetings and, meeting with a sponsor and all, and spending all this time with the kids now, it's, I always fall back on what could I have done better today. I always go to sleep and say, either this was a really great day, let's do this again tomorrow, or you know what, maybe you could be a little more patient with this person, or maybe you should just, be happy that they're happy. I have to remind myself all of these things because it's so easy to fall back on things like high expectations, or judgment, or I'll even find myself getting mad at my 12-year-old because she isn't texting me back good morning, and I'm like, dude, 6 months ago, you didn't even know what she was doing. Like, what are you doing? Like, you dumbass. But, it's literally, it sounds cliche, but I literally am just doing everything that you guys have taught me to do. And it doesn't feel like a chore. I look forward to my meetings. I look forward to seeing everybody. I don't like to miss them. That's first and foremost. And my kids know it. They see me around it. And, just the fact that I'm at ball games, it's amazing, and that I'm happy. I mean, I'm excited to get up and go to work. I've never been excited to go to work. Who wants to go to work? That's just 8 hours that I can't drink. So, I don't watch the clock anymore. It's like it just goes by and then I'm out and I'm off to whatever I'm doing next, whether it's eating chicken with the guys and going to a meeting or, it's a different way of life. It's awesome. And every day I look forward to something, and routine for me is something that has been, kind of really important, I guess, is, I know where I'm supposed to be and I make sure that I'm there, even if I don't want to be there. Like it's Thursday night or, it's Tuesday night. I've got, my men's meeting. I may not feel like it, but I'm going to go. And if I don't feel like it, I'm probably going to go before I should go, and then I'm going to leave and be like, thank God I went to that, I don't want to sit at home anymore by myself. That's no fun, man. I spent a lot of time sitting on the couch, drinking, watching Law and Order, thinking, God, this is the best. If I could just do this forever.
I get it. I get it. So, what would you say to someone who might be out there listening who thinks they're beyond hope?
I mean, if this doesn't prove anything, I mean, I'm a guy who's drank for 25 years, tried the program on and on for 15. It's keep trying, keep moving forward. That would be it. Just keep moving forward.
Is there anything we haven't talked about that you want to talk about?
No, I can't think of anything. How about yourself?
Yeah.
I
think
mean, you
you've
gotta
done
have some
great. I
questions.
really do. I think you. Well, I'm about to hit you with some rapid fire questions
I
if you're
mean,
ready for them, sir.
I'm losing my voice here. When are you gonna say something? I'm doing all the work here.
It's your story. It's your story.
And I'm sticking to it.
No, and I all right. Are you ready for some rapid fire questions, Jeremy?
No.
Good. Here we go. What is your favorite recovery slogan?
Oh God. You know, I have a few. I think I used to tell people at work this a lot when I was a manager. I would say, keep it simple, stupid. So keep it simple is one that I like a lot. I mean, because now I say it to myself, nothing changes if nothing changes. I guess the one I like to tell other people is progress, not perfection.
Yeah. Those are good ones.
The other day.
What is your least favorite recovery slogan?
Oh God, it has to be it works if you work it. It's true, and that's why I hate it. Because I used to sit through these meetings that lasted a freaking hour. Then we have to hold hands, and then at the end they recite some thing where they all go, "It works if you work it." And I'm like, I'm out of here.
Who wants to work?
Yeah, what is this thing? It's true. That's why I hate
What
it.
do
You
you?
know what I mean?
I do. I do. What do you think is your sobriety superpower?
Oh, invincibility, man. I just keep coming back, man. I mean,
If you could say one thing to you, if you could say one thing to your former self, what would it be?
oh, hang in there. Keep coming back. It works if you work it.
What
Yep.
song do you play to lift your spirits when you need a boost?
Oh man, anything Bob Marley?
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
yeah.
If you could grant yourself one wish to help with your recovery, what would it be?
One wish? Oh man, you stumped me on this one, Joe. Ask the question again.
If you could grant yourself one wish to help with your recovery, what would it be?
I wish that I remain hopeful and grateful. I wish that I wish I wish for this I wish to see where this can go.
What step do you love the most?
3.
What step do you love the least?
9. Although I'm
What
really
is one
good
of
at
your
it. I've
favorite
practiced
movies?
that one a lot.
Listen, I was trying to get out of that one with you.
I could go on for another
It
hour.
does. There's we forget the steps in between. It's and now I'm gonna go on a tangent, but when you said went from step 1 to step 9, I was right there with you. I did the same type of thing, but so I hear you. What is one of your favorite movies?
Good Will Hunting.
And if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
What would I like him to say? How did you get here?
Wow.
What took you so long?
There you go. There you go. Jeremy, you are one of a kind. You are just a warm, wonderful guy. And I'm so grateful you took the time today to, share your story, and you're like pleasure to be trudging with you. So thank you for that.
Likewise. I mean, you're an awesome guy, Joe, and I appreciate you having me.
Thank you, brother. All right, everybody. A new episode is released every Thursday at noon. You can now visit thecupofjoeshow.net, and you can listen to the show in your favorite podcast apps, Apple, Podbean, Spotify, YouTube, and others. Just search for The Cup of Joe Show. Don't forget the "the." Please like, follow, subscribe, and share because someone out there needs to hear this today. Have a good day, everybody.
It's just a laid-back vibe, baby.
We hope you enjoyed today's experience, strength, and hope. We are so grateful you decided to join us. Please share this episode with someone who might need it. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. Remember, no matter where you are in your recovery journey, you are not alone. Reach up and reach out to someone. Please do not suffer in silence. Until next time, let's take it 1 minute, 1 hour, and 1 day at a time. Thanks for listening to The Cup of Joe Show.